name's Sean, welcome to Venom Racing, and today we're going to be reviewing my 2004 Honda S2000, which is now supercharged. But the real question is, can I drive? Get back in the car. Alright guys, let's go ahead and buckle up. Alright, let me turn the heater down, it's kind of getting hot. So today we're in my 2004 Honda S2000, which I've saw on the channel quite a few times because we've done a few little modifications here and there. So to start off, this 2004 Honda S2000 actually started off as a COPART vehicle. It was actually salvaged out. I'll post a picture up above. And it was actually totaled and it was hitting the rear end. I don't know if a guy hit a pole or what, but I ended up picking up this car around 2 to 3 years ago for I think around $4,000. It had 69,000 miles on it. It was a very clean car inside and out, but it had a lot of damage on it. Luckily, we had a parts car, so we were able to fix it and it had no structural damage of any nature, so it made a perfect car. So that's how this car got started off. And well, had it for a year, and then I was like, you know what? I live in Oklahoma, so the roads around here aren't very fun, so I never really drove the car like it was meant to be driven. And then I got invited out to a S2000 meet in Arkansas called the BMT, which there's also videos on our channel talking about that. And well, at the time I honestly thought about selling the car. I was like, you know what, this car is okay, but maybe there's something that I can do that's a little bit more fun that I can actually drive around and have a good time with. Well, long story short, I went to BMT. Ever since then, I made a lot of good friendships out that way. There's a lot of good people. The S2000 community is probably one of the best that I've been a part of. And I fell in love with the car, and back then it was a stock AP2, and then that's when the money pit started. So after that event, I went ahead and threw on some coilovers on it. Threw on some, I got a really good deal on some V3 Coilovers. So I wanted to, honestly, what I wanted to do was, I figured out that I need to become a better driver after that event, obviously. So I wanted to enhance the suspension of the vehicle. I didn't want to add any power to it. I just wanted to enhance the suspension, the braking, pretty much all of that kind of feel. So I wanted the car to handle the best of it that it could. And then I wanted to become a better driver, then add power later on. So I threw some coilovers on it, and then I took it out to the track, and I had a blast. And I learned a lot about the car. I learned a lot about it at its limits in a controlled environment, which was a good idea. And then I actually started from there. I went ahead and added a roll cage, or not a roll cage, but a roll bar, just for safety reasons. I had a Recaro Pole Position. That way, I wouldn't have to have an ab workout anytime I went to the track or any spirited driving, so you can actually focus on the driving aspect of it. And I think at that time I added spoon rigid collars. I swapped out all my control arm bushings with Mugen Control. They're a little bit harder control arm bushings. So really at that point, I've done a few odds and ends here and there. I can't remember everything, to be completely honest with you, but I think I added a big brake kit at that point. And every modification I've done to this car, I've really felt like it's enhanced the driving experience, which is why I love this car. For one, just the driving experience you get out of it, it's par nothing. Like for example, the Mustang I had, yeah, it was a lot quicker of a car, but the driving experience I get out of this car is, I've never drove anything like this S2000. So I would say if you've never drove an S2000, you really need to. And that's the one thing about the S2000 too, which was nice, is that you could drive, the track is 2.5 hours away from my house. You could drive the piss out of it if you wanted to, and then drive home. And what other car can you do that in for the most part? It's crazy. So I mean, you really start to trust the car. And I mean, this is keeping the car over 6,000 RPMs the majority of the day. You know, I mean, that's where this car lives at. You really got to push it to get anything out of this car, or you're going to be driving like a Civic all day long. But then I went to the track again, and I had a good time, and I felt like, you know, I think it's time. So I went ahead and added the SOS Supercharger. Well, there's a little backstory behind that. The reason why I did that, I rode in one of my buddies' Supercharged S2000, and well, let me tell you, that was probably the most expensive drive I've ever drove, just because I had to buy one. So I know what y'all are probably wondering, what's it like to drive a Supercharged S2000? I wouldn't say it's something that's like a turbo where you get on the gas and you're waiting for it, and just kicks in automatically. It literally feels exactly like the normal S2000, except whenever you get to around the normal VTEC range, actually, it feels like you're going into VTEC, but times 10. It literally, the best way I can describe the driving experience is like an S2000 on steroids. It's not something that just kicks in randomly or at a certain spot. It's such a linear power band. That's the one reason why I was scared to go forced induction, is because I didn't want to change up how the power band was in the S2000, which with the SOS Supercharger kit, or if you go with the Craftworks, or really any Supercharger kit of that nature, it's going to be a very linear power band that's going to increase with your RPMs, aka similar to VTEC. So it's like VTEC on steroids. That's the best way I can describe the driving experience. It's nothing, I wouldn't say the power level, because I just went with the Stage 2 kit on the SOS, so I'm only probably making around 390-ish power on pump gas. But at this point, I feel like the car is very balanced. I've done all the suspension modifications. I have aero modifications. I have the Supercharger kit. I have the roll bar. I have Recaro Pole Position to sit in. I feel like the car, I don't feel like there's anything else I could really add to this car to make it any better. At this point, I feel like the car is done. I mean, maybe I need to get a second Recaro Pole Position instead of just a stock AP2 seat, but at this point, I mean, the car feels amazing. I feel like I'm driving one of my dream cars every time I get in. It's got such an attitude to it, if that makes any sense. That's why I enjoy driving it so much. You gotta work. You don't necessarily have to work for the power as much with the Supercharger as you did before, but it's something that you have to actually pay attention, like when you're driving. You gotta be on it. That's the one thing about the S2000, is that you can't drive like a brand new sports car, you know. It's so easy to drive. I mean, you really got to work for the power. I mean, you got to learn how to heel-toe downshift within the corners, especially if you're just on a stock S2000 getting power. You got to stay within that VTEC range. So the S2000 in general, you really have to work for. I mean, to be quick, it's a fast car. Don't get me wrong, but to get a lot of that power, you actually have to work for it. It's not just going to be an easy drive. It's not going to be, let's say, like for example, I'll compare the Mustang again. The Mustang, yeah, it was really fast around the mountains and everything, and handled well, but I just didn't feel the connection that I do with the S2000. With the S2000, you really, like I've told you before, you have to work for the power, and you feel one with the car. It feels like you're driving a go-kart for the street. So that's the best way I can describe it. Where the Mustang, I could be in third or fourth gear and just press on the gas anywhere within the RPM range, and I had power all throughout. So it wasn't as fun because I didn't have to really. It wasn't mandatory for me to have to really heel-toe downshift every single corner because in rev match and everything else. So it was just too easy to go fast. And I think that's a complaint with a lot of newer cars, is that while they're stupid fast, but I mean, it's a lot easier to do, especially since most sports cars are now automatics. It's easy to get to the power. And it's easy to go fast. I mean, anyone can hop in a car and do it anymore. Where the older, more analog cars, you really got to work for that power sometimes. And that's another reason why I like manuals. That's a whole another video. But in the S2000, I would say if you've never drove an S2000, you really need to. It's just the driving experience is top notch, especially if you drive a forced induction one. And honestly, if you want to know the truth, I don't really think you have to necessarily add power to the S2000. Even in its stock 240 horsepower inline 4-cylinder, I mean, that's crazy for a naturally aspirated motor. The car runs good. It runs great, really. I mean, and like I said before, back when it was 240, you really get to learn the car at that nature. The Supercharger, it's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, it puts a smile on my face every time I get into it. It sounds pretty good too. I like the whine, but so what are my goals for this car after this? Honestly, I'm pretty content with the car at this time. I just added the oil cooler to it, and in the last video I installed the oil cooler, but since then I've changed actually the routing of the line, so it looks a lot better, guys. I'll show you all an engine bay clip. I should have routed it a little bit differently. It's a lot cleaner, it's a lot less room for the oil to have to travel to and whatnot. But really at this point, I'm just gonna enjoy the car. I'm gonna drive it, take it to the track, and take it to BMTs and just have fun with it at this point. You know, I don't really feel like it needs anything else. So, alright guys, this is going to wrap up the video. This is a little bit of backstory behind on my 2004 Honda S2000, which was a rebuilt car, and it's made quite the transformation. I probably spent, financially wise, this was a very dumb decision, because it's not a rebuilt title S2000. While the value of S2000s are going up, it is a rebuilt title, so it's not going to be worth as much regardless. So the money I've spent on this car, I wouldn't be able to get back out of it unless I went through the trouble of parting everything out, reverting it back to stock, and then going back. So financially, it's a very dumb decision, yes, but I'm financially set up where I wasn't worried about it, and this has been over the year that I've actually built this car, so over the years, so it's not that big of a deal. And it's one car that I probably will never sell. I probably had around 20 different cars in my life, just buying something and selling it, you know, just kind of going through different vehicles. Where this car, I've honestly built an attachment to it where I enjoy driving it. There's no reason why I would ever want to sell it. So, alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And guess what guys, we'll see y'all in the next one.